Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Claudine.
This video was inspired by a question posed to us on one of our other videos, so we'd like to address unfiled tax return issues, tax amnesty. The question was, I've been unfiled for 3 to 4 years. How long before they do an SFR on me?
Right.
Which is a substitute filed return.
That's right.
Okay. So having unfiled taxes is really quite common. A lot of people don't know that.
Yep.
We want to talk about options if you have unfiled taxes or unfiled international reporting forms. More and more people have been addressing this issue since the law was passed saying that your passport could be revoked or denied if you owe a lot of taxes. So let's start with that first question. What is an SFR?
An SFR is what the IRS does when you don't file a tax return, and they still have some, but the IRS has some information about your income.
Mm-hmm.
W-2 information, 1099 information, 1098 information, K-1s. So the IRS is able to take the information reported to you, run it through their automated underreporting unit software, and then they're able to put out a return, and then they send that return to you, and they say, hey, you didn't file a return. Take a look at this, because this is what you're going to owe, so file your own return if you don't agree with this. People, this is a common thing. People get certified mail from the IRS. A lot of these come certified, which is sort of terrible for people because the certified notice comes and they're at work. They get the notice and they can't get to the post office to get the notice. So they're thinking, well, maybe if I don't pick up the notice, nothing bad will happen. So it's very common. People will come into our office, stacks of unopened mail from the IRS, and without any of their certified mail that the IRS sent.
So is it odd that she hasn't gotten an SFR yet if she's unfiled for 3 to 4 years?
Yes, that is very strange. That makes me wonder what's going on. There might be something different going on in that case because the IRS, the software the IRS runs has gotten a lot better. They used to take 3 to 4 years to create a substitute filed return. Now it's in a year and a half. They're much quicker with it. They're able to get it out a lot quicker. So they should have filed one already. And maybe they don't have any information on you, or maybe they're sending it to a different address.
Oh, okay.
That could be very common. The IRS has the last known address on you, so that you could be, all these bad, mean, nasty things could be happening to you because, IRS doesn't have to actually inform you. All they have to do is send out the letters. You actually don't need to know that you have a tax problem for a tax problem to be legally binding upon you.
SFR, side note as well, is not great because they're not going to give you the write-offs that you could normally get. So you could end up, if you do your taxes, instead of the SFR, you're going to have better outcome.
Right. The SFR is sort of the IRS's way to say, we really want you to file a return. We really want you to file a return. Because something that is related to this, a lot of people are concerned that not filing returns will make them subject to criminal charges. And then if they file it, then they're just going to open a can of worms. And now you're going to raise attention to themselves. So they're in this paralyzed state where they're not sure exactly what to do. Well, this is why the IRS wants you to file a return, because if you don't sign a return, you never made a statement to say this is my income. People get charged with tax evasion because they lied on their tax return. Very few people, it does happen, but very, very few people are charged with a tax crime because they didn't file any return.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So how much time does the IRS have to come after you for unfiled returns? Forever?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. How's that? That's the answer. If you never file a tax return, the IRS could always file a tax return for you. That is the way the law is written. So it kind of could go on forever. In practicality, that doesn't happen that much. Very rarely does the IRS go back more than 6 years if they haven't already, simply because the records aren't there. There had to be a reason why they didn't SFR you in the first place. They didn't have the information. So for a practical matter, it's somewhat limited, but in theory, the IRS could always go back and get you for anything at any time if you didn't file a return.
Right. But how about this?
Yes.
What if you end up filing your returns and you find out the IRS owes you money? How much time do you have to get that?
Oh, yeah. So that's a little bit different because that goes against the IRS, so they limit that. So that's what's nice. When you're able to write the rules, you write them in your favor. So this is really, really important. So many people, like the IRS just said $1 billion in tax refunds went away a few weeks ago on April 16th because people had a limited amount of time to collect those refunds, which is 3 years from when the tax return was originally filed.
Oh.
So the IRS said, hey, we have all these refunds, $1 billion that people who didn't file their returns, just let the IRS keep.
Wow.
Wasn't that nice of them? Now, there is one exception to that sometimes could really help out people who missed that 3-year deadline, and it's the 2-year rule. If you made a payment within the last 2 years for something that you're now entitled to a refund on, you can get that back.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes people forget about that. They look like, oh man, this refund's for 2005. I'll never get this refund back. Oh, I better not bother. Well, they're getting bad advice, because maybe if you did make, if there was a levy payment or if the IRS intercepted a refund, super common. If you owe taxes, the IRS is going to take that refund. So really, you want to know, have they taken any money from you for refunds for other years? Because you might be able to get that back.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. So what if you file and then you find out you owe a ton of money that you can't afford to pay? Let's talk about options. Option number 1, an offer in compromise.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's where you demonstrate to the IRS you have a limited ability to pay. They accept it, and they accept it because it's a good deal for them, because you have a limited ability to pay.
So it's a lump sum?
There's a lump sum, and there's also a periodic one too.
Okay.
So there's either way you can go. Offer and compromise work out really well where you have a large ability to pay, or you have a limited ability to pay, and you have some way to come up with that offer and compromise amount. Now, some people who are really dead broke, you can settle it for $100, $1,000. It does happen. We have done that for people. But offers and compromise, and those cases are a little bit easier. The hard cases are where somebody actually makes money, has assets.
Yeah.
A common issue is where people get a settlement, a legal settlement, for, say, a car accident, and they were given some wrong legal advice about what portion was taxable, what was not. They maybe assumed none of it was taxable or not enough. The IRS comes back to say, hey, wait, this was, this part of it was economic damages, therefore that's taxable. Now they send them a tax bill, right? So here's a problem, though. This is all that, the legal settlement they got was all the money they're going to get. They lost their ability to earn. So somebody who has, gets a $600,000 legal settlement, okay, that seems like a lot of money, and it is. It's a lot of money to make in a year. But if that's all the money you have for the rest of your life, you're panicked because you're like, this isn't going to last very long.
Right.
So what happens is people get a large tax bill. It's like, oh, geez, I have no choice but to pay this because I have the ability to pay. And somebody at the IRS will tell them, like, well, you can't do anything about this. You got to pay us. Or maybe they'll go to somebody who doesn't understand, sort of more sophisticated negotiations. They'll say, well, you got the ability to pay, so you
Basically,
gotta pay it.
you have to paint a picture saying, this is the income I have for the rest of my life.
That's
and
right.
This is why I need it.
And you can hang on to it all. If that's it, because if that's truly the case, where this legal settlement you get is all you have left, and this also happens too. It could be for other things too. If you're retired, you're in up a big tax debt, and yes, you have the money sitting there. That yes, you could pay it, but when you pay that, where's the rest of your income coming from? Those are the harder offers in compromise. Those were the ones I like the most because we make the biggest impact on people, and we're able to get the real facts out because it does work. You can settle it, even if you have the money to pay in full. You absolutely can.
All right. So another option, if you find out you owe and you can't afford, is something called an installment agreement. What is that?
Well, it's the IRS payment plans. There's a few different types. You have some installment agreements that will pay your debt in full back over the remaining collection time. The IRS has a time to collect.
So it's like a monthly payment?
Monthly payment. You can do a direct debit. And then there's some where you're paying a nominal amount each month that won't pay it off in the remaining statute of collection. The IRS has 10 years to collect the taxes. They have forever to assess if you don't file, and they have 10 years to collect. So that's why we always tell people, file, because you can at least get the problem behind you. Either, a day clicking by is a day closer to it going away as long as you file. If you don't file, clock didn't even start ticking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about CNC, currently not collectible?
So currently non-collectible is oftentimes a status the IRS will put you in, even if you don't ask for it. That it's something that it's called status 53 if you work at the IRS. If you really want to freak them out, you can tell them that. Yeah, you just put me in status 53. And it's something where the IRS looks at your collection picture and they say, this person just doesn't have any money to collect from us right now, or to collect from them right now. So we'll just sort of hold back, wait for them to get some, and maybe we'll revisit it. So this is sort of it's a good thing the IRS gets off your back. They're not going to bother, taking any active collections against you. But the bad point is that you might be tempted not to deal with it then, because your financial picture, that might be your best financial picture to present to the IRS, because it's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be the time to try to get an offer and compromise through, but the IRS backed off and it's not bothering you. So you're like, okay, well, I'll just let sleeping dogs lie. Maybe it'll go away.
You start to make money and they swoop in.
Right. So CNC is good, and it's really good where you're like, okay, I'm not going to make any more money. This is really, I don't really see anything. I'm not going to inherit any money in the future. CNC is fine, and sometimes it's also a good thing for the next thing we're going to talk about, sort of when you're trying to get some time to file bankruptcy. But if you are in CNC and you're thinking, you know what, my financial picture may improve, that's really where you want to start looking at that offer and compromise to wrap it up good and proper and get it done.
And the 10-year clock is running with CNC?
Yes, that still continues.
Okay.
But one important thing, and this is a huge change, huge, and another reason why currently non-collectible status, uncollectible status, status 53, might not be the best thing for you is that it won't keep your passport safe.
Oh.
There is the new passport revocation law that if you owe $50,000 or more to the IRS, and that's could be any combination of tax, penalties, interest.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take a lot to get up to $50,000 when you add all the plus. So you really, if passport's an issue to you, you would want to do an installment agreement or offer and compromise, or even a bankruptcy to discharge it if you're able to.
Yep.
So that's one thing that's pretty critical. A lot of people do need their passport. You kind of want to have that. I think there's going to be some new laws coming up for even intrastate travel.
Yep.
The real ID law, you're not going to be able to use state regular IDs. Some states will have a special ID you can get, but not everybody. So a passport might be necessary just to visit your grandkids in Toledo.
Wow. So bankruptcy is an option to get rid of IRS debts?
Yes, but your taxes now. This is the number one issue of bankruptcy. My friends who do bankruptcy, who discharge it, the number one issue that comes up is when someone doesn't file a tax return and the IRS files a substitute for filed return. And now, does that classify as a tax return that can be discharged? Well, man, it varies by jurisdiction. Depends on where you live if you can actually get rid of that. But it seems more and more that the IRS says that doesn't count as a tax return, even if you file one later. So you can't get rid of it at bankruptcy. Again, the reason why we say file your tax returns, always file even if you owe, because you get the clock going.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do you get the clock going for the collection statute, you get the clock going for that bankruptcy, because after 3 years after that was originally due, whether it was due April 15th, your original due date, June 15th, your expat, October 15th, if you got an extension. 3 years after that, bankruptcy wipes it out. And you could really offer the IRS zero.
Mm-hmm.
And having that card can be really helpful to play, because you might not even need to file bankruptcy. You could just go to the IRS and say, look, I'm going to file you an offer and compromise. I'm going to offer you this amount. And this amount is more than you would get in bankruptcy, which is zero.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're not, there's some people they just don't want to do that for, might send the wrong message. But as long as you're, short of giving them something reasonable that a IRS appeals examiner can look at to say, yeah, this is a good deal for us, because you can file bankruptcy, we'll get nothing. So you're offering more than we would get in bankruptcy. And now you get rid of it, and now you don't have that bankruptcy against your credit. And when you settle with an offer and compromise, that doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't go on your credit
There's
report.
no black mark.
And and you have a forgiveness of debt, but you don't have forgiveness of debt income. And when you file an offer and compromise about 2 months after that offer is accepted and paid, automatically those federal tax liens come off. So you're going to see your credit boost 100 points. So again, this is why we're always telling people, file those old tax returns.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to.
But sometimes people come to us and they've lost records.
Yep.
There's fires, there's floods, you just lost them.
Oh,
what if people don't
God.
have records? How can they file their returns?
Yeah, and we live in Connecticut here. So we have a lot of people from Connecticut. We seem to get every type of weather here. We get hurricanes, floods, we get blizzards. We don't get a lot of earthquakes. But our clients around the country, around the world, there are things that happen. You have weird sort of family things happen where records are taken by one party, and strange divorces and things happen. Ultimately, what happens is records go missing,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to file returns. Well, the IRS knows that. The IRS is fully aware of that. Well, there's guides that we have on how to sort of reconstitute what's reasonable under the circumstances. If you're working as a plumber, okay, you don't have 100% profit margin. There's no way. There's not any plumber in the world that has 100% profit margin. You have some work van, you have parts. There's something you have to do. So how can we go about and document what it was? A thing that happens a lot. People are missing mileage logs. We've gone and reconstituted those to say, okay, well, tell me who your clients were. Tell me where your customers were. Give me your average day. Okay, now give me your average week. Okay, now we'll just multiply that by 52 or 50, how many ever weeks you were working. And the IRS will accept that because it's like, yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. The thing is that you're going to miss out. We can't, you're probably going to miss out on everything that you could have claimed, but you're getting pretty close to what it should be. So that's really what you want to do. You don't want to just say, oh, I can't file on my returns because I can't find the records. That's not really a good excuse because there are ways to work around it. And by the way, all your W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, K-1s, there's going to be a record of those. So we could put those numbers in fairly easy.
What if any of the unfiled returns people have include foreign accounts?
Yeah. So this has been, in the news a lot. And it's been a big area of growth for us, that a lot of people have foreign accounts, foreign inheritance. They have something foreign.
Foreign retirement.
Foreign retirement. There's so many things, and by foreign, this might not be foreign to you, because it actually might be in the country you're living in. You could be certainly watching this video in Australia saying, well, my superannuation actually isn't foreign, it's in Australia. There are a few different programs that we use, and it kind of comes down to a few things. Did you do anything intentional? And most people's no. Maybe at worst they were negligent, like, oh yeah, I kind of thought there was something going on, got distracted. I went to a guy, he didn't tell me what I want to know. Yeah, I kind of just let it go. Well, that's not exactly intentional. And then there are people who did, were doing something intentional. Very rare to say, yeah, I opened this account to hide income from the IRS. And there's a different program for that. For most people, most people fit into a streamlined program, which is going back 3 years, submitting a statement, submitting some other things too, to get that behind them if they haven't filed at all. It also works if you did file. If you did file, you just need to amend and include. It also works.
Okay.
And then for some people, they don't have any income. They're just missing forms. Sometimes it's just filing the missing forms if that's recorded. If you don't have a filing requirement, you might just be able to file some missing forms to get it behind you.
Okay. Last question. I haven't filed, and you've touched on this, but I would say to wrap it up, I haven't filed. The IRS has not contacted me. They're not coming after me. Why should I bother filing?
Well, I hope we presented the reasons why. The thing is, you're not, the chances of criminal charges, let's just take those off the table. It's really, really low. That's not really what's going to happen. The problem of you not filing is that the IRS has great collection tools. Eventually it catches up to you. And when it catches up, the IRS moves very slow. It's like, I think you think of the IRS as an oil tanker. It takes miles, hours for it to get up to speed. It takes hours for it to slow down. That's sort of how tax problems are. They take a long time to get going. If you don't file a return on April 15th, the IRS doesn't send you a notice 2 weeks later to say, hey, we're looking for your return. We're wondering what's going on. No, there'll be one notice a few months later and notice afterwards, a notice that you don't understand. And they're nothing bad. And by bad, I mean the IRS seizing some money or garnishing anything for years. It doesn't happen for years. So that you're thinking you're getting away with it. And that's what a lot of people get into. They're like, well, the IRS hasn't bothered me. I haven't had all these unfiled returns. They haven't bothered me, so maybe they just forgot about little old me. Well, that's not exactly what it is. It's more the IRS has budget constraints. The IRS, now here's the other thing too. This might actually answer the commenter's question, because now I'm actually thinking, I think I know the answer to it. The IRS can send out automatic notices as much as they want. It costs them, they have unlimited amount, they can send out as many notices that they want. And SFRs, they can send out as many as they want. There's no limitation. The software will just do it, as much as they want.
Right.
There's nothing to stop them. But here's the problem for the IRS. Whenever they send out those automatic notices, including the substitute filed returns, the problem is people get on the phone and call. And they are on the phone for hold times of 2 hours. right? Which gets the IRS bad attention and bad press to say, why are you taking so long? So the IRS intentionally sandbags itself to say, no, don't send all those notices because it's going to make the phone ring.
Yep.
So probably what's going on is the IRS is holding off on your SFR. You're somewhere in the queue. You're somewhere in the queue to get to when, I don't know, the IRS doesn't share that information. They like to keep that secret. So that when they get to you, it's because they have time to anticipate your callback when things sort of go south.
Yep.
So now here's the issue. So here it is. You're sort of being led into this false security. Meanwhile, you have this refund maybe for all the years, one of these years, going away. So that's where that could really answer the question is the IRS has far fewer staff than they do in 2010. They have half the revenue agents, half the revenue officers. So they're limiting their they're picking their targets, and they're also waiting you to get bigger. They're not going to go after small problems. They'll just, we'll wait a few more years. Problem will get big enough for us to get
penalties
attention.
and interest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now you have their attention.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can like and comment below and subscribe to our channel so you get more awesome tax updates. If you have any questions, you can call us at 888-727-8796 or email info@irsmedic.com and we'll get back to you. We want to thank you for watching.